Welcome to the Mom as Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here.
Mama's Well.
Yes, she is. Hey, if you are here for the first time, this is a podcast for parents, foster parents, adoptive parents, really just human beings, actually, where we talk about things that matter, tough stuff. This is a place for community and for support, and primarily for foster and adoptive parents, because it's a unique journey that we're all on, and it's better done together. So today I want to talk about something. Do you ever think, as humans, but as parents of children from hard places, do you ever think it's just not fair? Because I do. I think that a lot. I think when I look at the kids and the things that they've gone through, and I've been caught thinking it's not fair. Why is that happening to them? And the truth is that what's fair or not fair doesn't really matter. What matters most is how we respond, and how we respond to our own things in life that aren't fair, and how we respond as parents who are trying to help kids overcome. And I've talked about one of my heroes. I talk about her a lot. It's Dr. Edith Eger, and she wrote a book called The Choice, and then another book that was released this September called The Gift, or I guess last September. And she talks about this concept. She's 93, I believe now, and she is a Hungarian Holocaust survivor. And she says that, let's see, how does she say it? She says, victims ask, why me? But survivors ask, what's next? And I think that's the difference. And if we spend our time asking or saying it's not fair versus, what do we do next? What do they need? What do I need? And so my guest today, she's not a victim. She's a survivor. And she has, she's grown up in drugs and violence and physical abuse, sexual abuse. I think she told me she'd moved 17 times in less than 10 years. She is an amazing young lady. She is a wife and now mother to a little 3-year-old boy. And she spent her life fighting and asking what next. And now she does that as a conservatorship worker for the state. She fights for other littles who need someone to help them see what's next. So without going on any longer, I'm going to introduce you to who has become a friend to me now. And I hope that will continue, Serenity Vega. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
That was a long introduction, I know, right?
No, it was good. It was good.
You are a survivor, and I am so proud to know you, and you've inspired me in just the little bit of time that I've gotten to know you. Serenity, would you, so first of all, you're married, right?
Yes, I
Tell
am.
us a little about your husband. That'll take a little of the discomfort away. Let's talk about your family just a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So my husband, his name's Alejandro.
Okay.
He works in sports and professional sports.
Okay.
In soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our 3-year-old.
And his name
is Leo.
Yeah, I want to meet him someday.
You will.
Yeah,
You will.
I've seen a picture of him. So a precious family, and you are definitely doing some hard work. You are a conservatorship caseworker in our county, right?
Yes, I am.
And that is an interesting choice of careers for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you tell, you have a very difficult story to tell, and a very vulnerable story to tell. but I think you want to tell it. Will you start back with tell us what it was like? Just start as early as you can remember. You were raised by your mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start there. Will you tell us your story, and I'll interject a little bit. I'll try not to interrupt too much, but I know people will be inspired by your strength.
Sure. So, yes, I was born and raised in California. I guess a majority of my life has been in Texas now, but I was born in California to my mother, who was a single mother. I do have an older brother who's about 3 years older than me, who had a different father. So neither of our dads were around that much, but sorry.
It's okay.
I guess the earliest that I can remember is whenever my mother's addiction first started, because it started because she had an injury at work and she was given a lot of medication by the pain doctors there to, help her. But she was taking like 20 pain pills per day, and then or 10 pain pills and 20 muscle relaxers. So she was often sleeping.
Wow. And how old were you at this time, Serenity?
It was when I was in kindergarten, so I was 4 and 5.
Okay.
So that's the start that I remember. She a majority of what I remember is her being, asleep, and I would be taken care of by either my older brother or my stepdad at the time. But
do you remember being scared?
yes, I never knew what was next, I guess. That's kind of what I'm remembering right now. I never knew what was next, and I always knew that it was going to be unknown.
Yeah.
So that I knew I wasn't going to know what was going to
How
happen.
were you getting to school each day?
I would walk to school with
Okay.
my brother.
Okay, so you guys would walk close. Y'all were close enough in age. You went to the same school.
No, he would take me to school first, and then he would go to his school.
Okay. So, and how much older is he?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. So you were being cared for by an 8-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah. You're like, yeah.
I guess I never
actually.
really thought of it like that. But yes.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how this is hard. This is hard, right? Reliving. I'm asking you to do something. We're going to take a deep breath here.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you. And okay, so I'm gonna help you.
Sorry.
No, this is hard stuff. Your mom was. I'm just imagining a mom taking like 30 pills a day, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody's supposed to be taking 30 pills a day,
Right.
And so she's sleeping. I've been around somebody who was taking a lot of those pills before, and they couldn't even hold their head up at Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
So-
there were times where she also smoked cigarettes, and she would be smoking a cigarette and she would fall asleep and like burn holes into the couch or the
Yeah, you're
blanket
good.
she was using or something like that. So that happened a lot too. So
Yeah.
she really couldn't stay awake most of the time. But so that's when her addiction had started. But then she decided I don't really know exactly when it happened, but she decided she wanted to move to Texas with some family or like close people that she was close with when she was younger. And so this was going to be another unknown journey that we were going to go on. And that's whenever it started coming out that my stepfather at the time was being very verbally abusive to my brother. And she didn't know about it until her friend, which was my brother's best friend's mom, told her about everything that was going on. So I guess I don't really know exactly everything that happened, but he did not go with us to
Okay.
Texas.
The stepdad.
Yes.
Okay.
But then a few months later, he did come
So
out.
was he being abusive to you as well?
No.
Okay, just your brother. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So do you remember thinking, did you know that was happening to your brother or?
I did always know that I was treated a little different than he was.
Okay.
I think that it was because whenever he came into the picture, I was like a newborn baby, so he maybe raised me as his baby, whereas my
Gotcha.
brother was
Yeah.
already like 3
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So you, your mother, your brother, whoever these friends were, y'all moved to Texas. That's a long trip. What do you
Yes.
remember thinking about that? Do you think, oh, this is going to be a fun adventure, or did you remember thinking, oh my gosh, where are we going, and what are we doing?
So I actually thought it was going to be fun. I was excited because she
Yeah.
talked it up that it was going to be super fun.
And maybe
so.
you were glad to get your brother away from the other guy.
Well, she promised us a new beginning, really.
Okay.
So I really thought it was going to be different.
Yeah.
So I was excited. But
Yeah.
at this point, by the time I was ready, we were going to move, I was probably like 8 at that time.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you're 8 years old. You're moving to Texas. Is that move number 1? We're not going to count them, by the way. but is that the first move you remember?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead.
And then, so we moved in with some friends, and my mother had gotten a settlement, which is how because of the injury. So that's how we got the money to be able to do that. And then I remember we always used to like look at houses for sale, and we never got one of them. So I guess that money went away. So I think that I don't know, I feel like there was a lot of like promises that were not kept. So I did feel very joyful and excited, like it was a new journey, because that's what I was told it was. So
Yeah. And then, so where'd you wind up?
So then we moved.
Well, you came to, where'd y'all live? Like if you didn't buy a house, or did y'all rent an apartment or stay in a motel?
We moved in with those friends.
Oh, you moved in with those friends. Okay.
And then we did get an apartment, and time had passed. I don't really remember a ton in that time frame, but the next time I'm starting to remember things is kind of when I'm starting to get into like high school aged.
Okay.
I don't know if I like blocked out memories for
You
like my
probably
brain
did.
just blocked them
Yeah.
out or not, but I don't have a ton of memories besides like small things. Yeah.
Pockets of stuff.
Yes.
And that's very normal for kids who've experienced trauma, significant trauma like you and me. I have things that I block out and don't know. I mean, I think that's very, very normal. And when it comes back up, we got to figure out how to move through that. So your high school, you don't remember junior high, but high school or the rest of that elementary period was kind of chaotic, I'm assuming, if you don't remember it.
Yeah, I think it might have been. I don't really remember it, but I do remember when things started getting to a really bad point where she started using more than just like prescription medications. That I believe was, or when at least I started noticing, was about the time when I was going into high school. Okay. So it was like the summer before high school started, and we were living in Matagorda, and it was my mom was a bartender, and so that's actually where she met some really, really great people who allowed us to move, to Conroe with them.
Okay.
So that's how I got here. But they allowed us to move to Conroe with them so that I could go to high school, and so that my mom would have a place to live, because at that time we were living with her first husband's brother.
Do you ever remember living with just you, your brother, and your mother? Or was it always y'all were living with, before this point, were you always living with different people, or were you living?
Yes, always with I can't remember living with just my mom and my brother.
A place that was your own?
Mm-hmm.
Right. You don't ever remember that?
Well, not
Yeah.
Not to this point, no.
Yeah. I think that's, so when you don't have a place that you, so obviously probably didn't have your own room or your own things, right? Did you?
Sometimes.
Okay.
It just depended on
who you were living with.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very uncertain feeling, isn't it? To not know where you're going to be next.
Yeah, and so actually my brother, you were asking about my brother. When I remember, it was me, my mom, and my brother. But actually, my brother, in that time frame of, when I was in like elementary school, junior high, my brother actually went to go live with his dad. So I actually have not seen him since then.
Wow.
So he just, because we have different dads. So he went to live with his dad, and then I stayed with my mom.
And how old were you then?
I guess I was probably 11.
So when you were 11 years old, your 8-year-old caregiver that you'd probably come to really depend on, right?
Yeah, he was my best friend.
Yeah. Wow. Serenity, that would be painful. Okay, so he left, you were 11. There's a part why you could have possibly blocked out a lot.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because you were alone with a lot of uncertainty. Okay, so I'm going to speed you forward to high school. Unless you remember something, we can come back. But you're getting into high school. Mom is starting to use a lot of heavier drugs, right? Probably in conjunction with the painkillers.
Yes.
Yeah.
She started working at a homeless shelter, and that is where she had met her boyfriend. And so we moved in with all together shortly after they got together. And I did not want to go because I was, we were living with the people that had brought us to Conroe to live. So
did they feel kind of like a family to you?
At that time, yes, they did,
Yeah.
because they were caring for me and providing for my needs and everything.
And so you had to leave their house to go live with the boyfriend that she met at the homeless shelter. Was
Yes.
he one? Was he working at the homeless shelter with her, or was he?
No, he lived
He
there.
So
She met him there because he lived there.
So where was he? Where were y'all going to move in? To the homeless shelter?
We moved into this trailer that was owned by somebody who rented it out to us illegally, and I wasn't even allowed to be enrolled in school.
Wow.
So it was a big ordeal.
Talk about school, because I know you and I had breakfast, and it was much easier to have this conversation over eggs and bacon
Yes.
and avocado toast. But school has always been really, really important to you.
Yes.
What is that? Because I think that's maybe the case for, I think sometimes school is really, really hard for kids, and it's not. That they don't want any part of school. But for you, what was school for you?
I liked school because I felt like it was like my getaway for 8 hours of the day, that I could go and hopefully not think about things that were maybe going on at home, but I could think about my friends or school or myself or anything else. I really just wanted to think about anything else.
Yeah, and it had a schedule, and it had served lunch. And were you eligible for like breakfast, and could you eat meals there, or just lunch?
Yes, I got my
Breakfast,
meals at school. Yeah.
So you knew, I'm going to be able to eat. I'm going to be able. No one's going to yell or scream or whatever was going on at home at school.
Yeah.
And you excelled at school, didn't you?
Yeah, I did pretty well.
Yeah.
I liked school a lot because of those things, and also that was most of the time that I got to hang out with my friends, because I didn't necessarily like to bring my friends over to where I was living. So
Yeah.
and I also wasn't necessarily living somewhere every time. So.
Yeah. So what did any of your friends know what was going on?
Most of them did not. I had one specific friend that did know, and there was one day that I told her everything because my mother was trying to move somewhere else. I can't even remember where at this point, but she wanted to move somewhere, and I just did not want to go. I was tired of moving around, and it wasn't going to be in the same town. And I was a sophomore in high school at this time, so I wanted to stay at the school that I started at and with the friends that I had. So I shared with my friend what was going on, and she was just like, I don't know what to do with all this. I feel like we should tell my mom. And I'm just like, yeah, let's tell your mom. And so we walk over from school to, well, actually we went to like my boyfriend's house, but then we walked from his house to her mom's work. And I told her everything. And then she was basically like, well, first of all, you're coming with me. You're not going home. And second of all, you can't tell me all that and me not do something. So I have to do something about this. So that's when they called the child abuse hotline and got in touch with Child Protective Services.
So before that time, did anyone question? Did you have a teacher? Did you have anyone ever question what was going on at home for you? That you were primarily raising yourself, it sounds like, moving from place to place to place. Did a teacher ever reach out, or anybody ever question what was going on?
No, I don't think anyone really knew. I was able to hide it pretty well. I just, I mostly hid it with being like hyper and exciting and stuff. So
let's just go back a little bit more, because we're at 15, but what was it like living with your mom? I mean, your brother left, you were 11. So what was it like? I mean, did y'all fight? Was she still sleeping all the time? I mean, what was it like?
She was sleeping a lot less because she was adding in different drugs.
Okay.
I always knew when she was using, because she'd have a crazy amount of energy that I'd be like, nobody should have this amount of energy. So I always knew that when she was using, but there were times, most of the time she would be gone. I would go home to just our apartment or wherever we were living, and she wouldn't be there, whether she was working or I never really knew what she was doing. But I always just assumed I'd hoped she was working or something like that. But I mean, most of it was just me living kind of by myself. I would come and go as I pleased. I would leave for a few days, come back, and not notice I was gone. You know.
So was there any like butting up, head butting?
Yeah, sometimes, because I did explain to her that I didn't want, I knew what she was doing and I didn't want that. And like, okay, well, how are we supposed to get food? And so there were, I mean, yes.
Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? Who said, how are we supposed to get food?
Me.
Okay.
So I would ask her like, well, how are we going to go buy dinner? I would go grocery shopping if she would give me money. I could go, because Walmart wasn't too far. I could just walk there, but there wasn't always money for that. So I would question her like, so when am I going to have dinner? When are we going to have some food here? When are we going to go get these things? And there was just never money. So
yeah. So what did you do?
And unfortunately, there were a lot of times when I would go to like Walmart or something and just take what I needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you were starving. Yeah. Serenity, it's okay. You know what? You did what you're a survivor. Thank you. You're a survivor. And that's what survivors do. Yeah. You're not supposed to be taking care of yourself at 11 years old. You were coming and going, trying to figure out what you're going to eat for dinner, asking your mom, what are we going to eat? What are we going to do? Finally, nobody notices this. This all just because you were a good student, right? You were a really good student. You were
Yeah, it never showed in my grades, so I guess there wasn't really anything for a teacher to ask questions about.
Were you being were any, you know, I think you just told me before that your mom never physically abused you, right? Mm-hmm. It's obviously neglect. I mean, you're the caseworker, but this is not, that is not okay, right?
Right. A lot of the physical abuse that I endured was with my mother's boyfriends.
Okay.
Specifically, something that I'm remembering is she had this boyfriend who he drank a lot, and she wasn't there for some reason. And then I went out to the pool with him. We were living at like a Motel 6 or what is it, Motel 8? I don't know.
Something like that.
6 or 8. But we were there, and we were swimming, and he was drinking, and I never really thought anything of it because he was always drinking, so it wasn't a big deal. But then when we went back, he was just acting so intoxicated. So, and he started getting kind of rowdy. I don't remember what the reasoning behind that was, or if there even was a reason. But him and my mom started arguing because at this point she came back. And they argued, and then he had hit her in the collarbone. He had punched her. And then she was like, oh, I'm going to, call the cops because you can't hit me and everything like that. And so I'm just so nervous. And my boyfriend at the time was not into the greatest things. He was, his family was like gang affiliated and stuff like that. So I called him because I didn't know who else to call to come and help me. And then I had told her boyfriend that I had called him and that he needed to calm down because my boyfriend was on his way, right? My 15-year-old boyfriend. Yeah,
but your 15-year-old boyfriend was a force to be reckoned with, right?
Right, he was. So at that point, he was mad at me, the boyfriend, my mom's boyfriend, and he pushed me behind the door and hit me with the door. And on these motel doors, they're like heavy metal doors. Yeah. So...
and he continued to do that, right?
Yes, until like I fell down because I was kind of jumbled up. But then my boyfriend and 5 other men came, and they pulled up, and they jumped out of their car and beat him up and then ran him over, and then they disappeared.
Wow.
So I don't even know who came. I know my boyfriend was one of them, but I don't know who any of those other people were.
Yeah, part of the gang, I'm sure.
I'm sure, yes, friends, something.
Yeah. So you had, your mother couldn't protect you. You were living in a Motel 6, 8, whatever, something with a metal door, and the boyfriend's beating you up. Again, you took charge. You know what I mean? 15-year-old says, I have to eat. I have to protect my mom. I have to protect myself. And you stood up and you did it. I mean, he was there faster than the cops would have been.
Oh, he was there faster than the cops were there, yes. And they disappeared before the cops got there.
Wow.
They finished their job before the cops got there, and then when the cops got there, I had to
Did the guy survive?
Yeah, he did, but...
he had to go to the hospital, I'm sure.
Yeah, he had broken legs and arms, and his face and his jaw, and were all broken.
Yeah. Did he come around anymore?
No.
Wow. Okay. So that was 15 years old. And that's about the time. Where does that fit in? Was that before or after you confide in your friend?
This was like probably a couple days before.
Okay. So this is where all of the what's hitting the fan.
Yes.
Okay. So that happened.
Yes.
Then your mom says we're gonna move out of the Motel 6 to somewhere. Tell me.
We moved to the lodge, which is it's not there anymore, but it was
like another kind of motel place, or
yes.
Okay.
But very, very run down and drug infested place.
So you moved from the Motel 6 to this other horrible place, it sounds like.
Yes, probably worse than the Motel
6. Okay. Yeah. And so when did you confide in your friend?
So we moved into this new place, the lodge place, and I don't really know. It wasn't very long, just a few. It had to have been less than a month for sure.
Okay.
But then,
What was going on there? And I'm envisioning that is mom with another boyfriend at this point, or same guy?
well, she met someone when we were at that place.
At the
but we
lodge.
were living with a friend that it was a woman who had a
Okay.
son, but
Okay.
we were living with them.
Okay. So but at the Motel 6, you're living in the same motel room. I mean, I'm envisioning 2 beds, mom and boyfriend in one bed, you in another bed, or did you sleep on the floor, or what?
It was 2 beds.
Okay. So you're like right up close and personal. This isn't something that was there drug usage going on? I mean, you mentioned alcohol. I'm getting back to still Motel 6, but what about the drug usage at that point?
I think most of it happened outside of there, because the first time that I actually saw her using was in the lodge.
The lodge. Okay. So let's go to the lodge.
So then, so we lived at the lodge, and she had met somebody there. I don't know how they met. I guess
Okay.
being there, I'm
Okay.
not sure. Maybe that's where she got her drugs, but I honestly don't know how they met.
Okay.
But really, I feel like most of that time was just the woman that we were living with taking care of me, or her son, who was the same age as me.
Okay.
I would usually sleep either with him or like on their pull-out couch or something like that. But
So this random boy, you're now all of a sudden expected to sleep in the
Yeah.
same bed like you were brothers.
Yes, that's
Wow.
true.
I mean, how did that was that just like so now, because you're an adult and you're free, you've had some space between that. Like, now looking back at that, like, what would you think? Like, if this was your son or daughter, like, like what is your adult, clear, feeling safe for the most part brain say now when you look back at that?
Well, I think the biggest thing that pops out is, like, at that time, I just didn't even think it was a big deal. I just did. It was just like, hey, you're going to be sleeping with him. Okay. Like, no big deal. Like, but now I'm thinking, like, even as we're sitting here, I'm just thinking, like,
Because
wow,
you weren't,
I can't believe that
you
happened.
weren't 4 or 5. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I was.
You were 15
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 14. Yep.
I think that is a really great point. And a lady that I like to read about trauma, her, oh goodness, I'll think of her name in just a second, but she calls it Crazy Town. And she says that when you were living in Crazy Town, right? You know that's Crazy Town now, but you didn't know it anything but normal
Right.
then. And you can't get out of Crazy Town unless you see there's something else, right? Like, that's Crazy Town. You were living in a motel, you were being beaten, you didn't have food, you were being neglected. All of that's crazy. It's not, never would you let little Leo go there. Yeah.
No.
Heather Forbes is her name. Heather Forbes. She writes about that. Okay, so you're in the lodge, Crazy Town, that got bulldozed, I guess.
Yes.
But not
think it's a
before you
car
spent some
dealership.
time there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you're sleeping in the bed with this friend's son. Was that anything weird go on there? Was
No.
he? No.
He was very nice to me,
Yeah.
very friendly, always wanted, he seemed to, look out like I was his sister.
Yeah.
He would walk with me to school at that point.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So how do we fit back into the place where you tell your friend? Because something's about to go down because you told your friend. What was about to go down?
Right. So I told my friend everything that was going on. I told her about the drugs that I knew that were happening. I told her about all the moves, all of the boyfriends, the times that, I was physically assaulted by them. I told her just everything and just told her how I was feeling about it, because at the time I just felt like I didn't know what I had the ability to do, because I felt really out of control of everything.
Sure.
So I told her and her mom, and I went home with them, and then I talked on the phone with the intake people. It felt like a really long time, but they told me to go to my academic counselor the next day after that, and then basically tell her everything. So at that point, with what I know now, they marked it as a priority too, because I was safe at the time, because I was at my friend's house.
Okay.
So then I went to the school the next day, and my friend Caitlin, oh wait, I wasn't supposed to say her name right.
We won't say her last name. There's a lot of Caitlins in the world.
There is. Yeah. So my friend, I had told her, she came with me because we had the same counselor. Our last names were close in the alphabet. And so, oh darn, I narrowed it down. I narrowed down the Caitlin.
We can bleep it out if we need to. I'm sorry. It's all right. You're good.
And so I told her everything. I told my counselor everything. And so she called in a case as well. She called in an intake. And
had you ever been to your counselor before?
No.
So you'd never met her?
Well, actually, yes, one time, and it was just to change one thing in my schedule at the very beginning of the year.
Yeah. How were you feeling at this point? I mean, were you feeling like, I mean, this is the first time, Serenity, that you sat down with a friend, which is probably the safest of all the things you're just about to embark on, but emotionally. Then you told her mother. Now you've told a school. Now you've told the case, the intake, or whoever at the Child Protective Services, right? Now you're telling. I mean, were you scared?
I started feeling like I was tattling like on my mom at that point, like that. But I felt like maybe if I were to get my friend's mom basically told me that an investigation would happen and it'd be possible that they would remove me from the home. And in my mind, I'm like, that's going to make her come to her senses. She's going to change everything if I get taken away. Like, I know she will. So I felt like I should tell everything that happened, because if I didn't, then maybe they wouldn't take me, and then maybe she wouldn't change. So I was kind of taking that on myself. Like, I had to do this so she could change.
Yeah. Being responsible again, getting the food, calling for help, saving your mom.
So, so I reached out to them, and then she had called in an intake. And then that night, I had went home with my friend, the same friend. And then that night, an investigator came out to talk to me, and I had to tell her everything. And then she said she was going to go talk with my mother. She was going to go drop in on her and see if she could, even see her at all, because I guess, sometimes they're not there or whatever.
Were you scared about that?
I was very nervous because I knew she was going to be so mad.
Yeah.
So
Did you feel safe? Did you feel like the woman and your mom, your friend and your friend and your friend's mom were going to stand by you?
Yes.
Like you felt like you were in a safe place?
Yes. Okay. And then I also felt like my counselor was going to be there for me as well, because she made me feel really good about telling her.
Okay.
So the investigator went and talked with my mom, and she did like an on-site drug test, like a mouth swab, and she was positive for most everything. Methamphetamines, opiates, cocaine, everything. So they decided I wasn't going to be going home that night. She came back and told me, like, okay, you're staying here for sure. So then I stayed there again. Was that family a foster? No, they were not a foster family, but they would just allow, it was okay for you to stay, kind of a kinship kind of placement. Is that what it was? Or they hadn't taken custody yet, so. Right. So they hadn't taken custody yet. So I was just staying there. And then the next day I had to go with the investigator, and I sat in the office until like 2:00 in the morning, and then they found a placement for me. It was at a group home, or I guess a shelter. So you sat in because this happens. It happens. You sat in a CPS office until 2 a.m. Were you alone? I was with the investigator. She was looking for the placement for me. So you just sat there while she called people on the phone or what have you? Yeah, I tried to like nap on the table, but on the table? Like yeah, put like your head down? Arm resting. What were you feeling in there? I kind of don't remember completely. I just remembered I remember the room. I passed that room all the time. I remember exactly the room I was in and everything, but I don't remember how I was even feeling.
So let's make this clear, because audience may not understand, but you are a caseworker in the same county
Yes.
that you were placed into care.
Yes.
So you office in the same offices that you sat in until 2 a.m. to have a placement.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. That's a big deal. It's like you're being re-traumatized every time you walk into the office every morning.
It doesn't necessarily feel like that every time, but
Yeah.
I have been, well, really more recently, there's been times where I feel really anxious when I'm working on cases or talking to kids, and it feels like I'm talking to myself as a teenager. Like I
Yeah.
get really anxious and like my stomach hurts. I feel like I need to throw up.
Yeah.
That's usually how I feel.
Really? Wow. Okay. All right. So you said I keep interjecting, but I'll always bring us back to 2 a.m. And you couldn't stay with the family?
I wasn't able to stay with them because
You don't have to tell if there's a reason why. That's
I
not,
wasn't
okay.
able to stay
Yeah.
there.
So okay. That was probably disappointing. You were probably hoping that you were going to be able to stay there.
Yeah, and me and my friend were like, "This is gonna be so cool. We're gonna like live together."
Sisters.
You know, like
Yeah.
we thought it was gonna be so cool.
I'm sure that was part of the, like the safety feeling, right? Like
Right.
Now all of a sudden you're not staying there and you're sitting in an office with a lady on the phone till 2 a.m. Not knowing, she doesn't even know where you're going, much less you.
Right.
And now I get that you're familiar with that, because until this point, that's been your whole life, is I don't know where we're going and who we're going to live with. Okay, so 2 a.m. you're going to go to a group home. Is it an emergency shelter or?
It was an emergency shelter.
Okay, so okay, wow. Had you ever been in a shelter before?
Yes, but it was different
Okay.
than a regular shelter. It was just kids.
Okay, so what was it like? You pull up there at 2 a.m. Was it dark with all the kids? I mean, I've never been in one. What's that like? Because I think our audience should know.
Sure. So, we pulled up, and it's in kind of, or it was, it's not there anymore, but that you pull up because it's kind of in the secluded area. Like the address is not really shared, so people can't find it.
Sure.
And so it's like back behind trees and everything, and just kind of feeling eerie going into this, going into a forest.
Yeah. Did she tell you? Did she say we're gonna go into? Okay.
Yeah, and she actually told me about it beforehand, but I don't know if it really necessarily made me feel any better. But we had to buzz in, and then they had to come unlock all the doors for us to go in, and then we went straight into an office. And I had to take give them all of my stuff so that they could go through it, and they had to do a pat down of my body, and then I had to do a drug test when I got there. And they had to go through all of my things and make sure they had an inventory of everything. So that took quite a while, and then to do all the paperwork as well. And then they brought me back and asked me if I wanted anything to eat, and I was just not really feeling it.
Yeah.
So they took me back to the room that I was sleeping in. It was down a hallway, the girl hallway. And I didn't have a roommate at that time, but I felt like I don't even feel like I fell asleep before they told me it was time to wake up to go to school.
Wow.
So then that morning, I got all ready and everything. I walked out there, and they're like, "Okay, do you want anything to eat?" And I just had a mental breakdown, and they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, how about you go back?"
Yeah.
to
What
your
did your
room?"
mental breakdown look like? Were you
I
crying,
just started crying, and I couldn't
Yeah.
even explain. I couldn't
Yeah.
say anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you feel comforted by whoever was there, or did they just needed to move on to help the next people? I mean,
Yeah, it felt
Yeah.
like they just wanted to move on, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, go feel better. Go to your room and try and feel better, and then so we can go to school, so we move
Wow.
on with the day."
So did you end up going to school that day?
Because I thought that would make me feel better, because I would get to
Okay.
see my friend, and then I wouldn't have to be there. I didn't want to be there.
Yeah. It's almost like you just walked into I mean, it's like
It was a
someone,
lockdown
like a
facility.
prison, you know? Yeah, a lockdown facility. Wow. Okay, so you get yourself together. You decide you want to go to school. You go to school. What do you do?
So my
friend.
caseworker came, or the investigator came to pick me up and take me to school because where the shelter was, I wasn't zoned to the school I was going to, but
they were going to let you go to the school. That's good.
So
Did you have to request that, or
yes.
did they request it for? Okay.
Well, I made it. I told them from the beginning. My only request was like, even if I had to go to a shelter, an RTC, foster home, whatever it may have been, I wanted to stay at my high school because that's the only thing that stayed the same for me.
Yeah.
So
I think you remember. I remember you telling me that when we had breakfast, how important. I think, did you mention this because you went to your friend because your mom was thinking about moving again, and you were going to have to move away from the school, right? Is that what happened?
Yes.
Okay, that's why you went to your friend, wasn't it? Because okay, so that was kind of, yeah, I'm remembering this now. School's a thread for you, right? It's been a safe place for you. Okay, all right. So you go to school. Your caseworker drops you off, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, my day was mostly normal. I mean, no one knew anything was different. I mean, everything was pretty normal, except I did go to my counselor and talk with her because they told me
about your counselor. She becomes somebody much more than your counselor, doesn't she?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about her. So you go into her office. What? Does she know this has happened, or did they keep her informed, or what?
Yeah, she knew. They did. Well, I don't know if they kept her informed or if she called and got the information herself, which is something she would probably do. So,
she knew when you walked in, or not?
I don't remember.
Okay.
She might have known, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
We started talking about, she started doing like therapy type things with me, like therapy activities. And then she would always give me, she always had snacks in her office, and she would always give me snacks. Or if I ever like was having a bad day or like couldn't handle being in that whatever specific class or whatever, I would just go to her office and hang out, and she would just let me. So, and then I guess a couple months after that, maybe it wasn't quite a couple months, maybe it was sooner than that. She had brought me into her office and asked me if I would be okay if I came to live with her and her husband and kids. And I was like, wow. I don't know.
Okay, but let's go back.
Okay.
Because I talked with this guidance counselor. We had her on the show. And they started doing, before that conversation, they started coming, somehow you got to hang out with them on the weekends or something. I'm remembering something about that. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I think a couple times I'm remembering. So one of the times I went to like a horse show with them, and then there was another time I just went to their house. Oh yeah. So the very first time I went to their house, that's when I met her husband and her kids. Okay. But it's actually kind of funny because the first time I ever met them, it's hard because I keep wanting to say my dad.
Yeah.
But
But he does turn into your dad.
Yes. So he was like chasing Kyle down the hall in a towel, and that's the first time I ever met him.
Wow, he didn't know you were comking in, huh?
He didn't know I was inside already.
So this guidance counselor, if I'm remembering the story right, she goes to CPS or Child Protective Services and says, what kind of role can I play in?
Well, I didn't know about this.
You didn't know. So she goes to CPS and says, I want to play a little bit more of a role in her life besides just being her guidance counselor at school. And they give her some sort of permission or whatever, right?
Like mentor type.
A mentorship, right. So then she starts, you guys start connecting outside of school. Yeah. What are you feeling at this point? Do you ever think in your mind, I wish they would adopt me? No. You just thought.
Well, at this point, I thought that I was going to go back with my mom. I think that was always a thought.
Forgot about mom, huh? We got to go back to mom.
We went too far.
Yeah. No, we're good. We're good. Spoiler alert. So you're thinking, I'm in the shelter. This is so nice that my guidance counselor, or did you trust it? Did you think she had some ulterior motive or?
No, it was just, I was open to it. And then she had, her oldest was only 3 years younger than me, and it was a girl. So
Okay.
I felt like I could connect with her. She was
Yeah.
cool. So I just enjoyed it, and it felt, I just had never done things like that. Like
Yeah.
they took me to a horse show, and I'm like, I've never
Yeah.
been
I've never
by
even
horses.
been to a horse show. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was really cool.
So you enjoyed it. Yeah. And what about your friend, the friend that we don't say her name? Were you guys, was she still in your life at that point?
Yes, but we kind of stopped being friends while we were in high school. So
Okay.
we kind of just like lost touch of
Got it.
each
Okay.
other.
So, how long were you in the shelter?
I guess it had only been like 3 to 4 months,
That's a long time. 3 to 4 months.
I think.
Yeah. Wow. That's like 120 days.
I think, yeah, I went as long as I was allowed to go. I stayed my entire
Okay.
allotted time.
So
frame.
what was so you're thinking at the end of the end of my allotted time, what was mom doing? Was she working her service plan?
I don't remember being very informed of if she was or not, but I did have a couple visits with her. Shortly after I was removed from her, I turned 15. It was like a week later was my birthday.
Wow.
So
Happy birthday.
So
Did you see her on your birthday?
yes, I'm trying to. Yes,
Yeah.
I did see her on my birthday, but I don't remember getting to see her that often. So I
Okay.
don't know. Maybe she wasn't doing her
Yeah.
services then.
But you, in your mind, you thought this is temporary. I'm moving back. Are you
Yeah.
still maintaining your grades? And wow.
Yeah. Well, at some point, she had even brought me to this apartment that had a room for me. So I really thought that we were going towards me
That.
going back with her.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So I had already started living with them,
Okay.
my new foster family,
Yeah.
because my time had ended at. I guess they did know that my time was ending at the shelter.
And so they were being certified to be your foster parents.
But they allowed them to have me move in without being certified yet, like as a
Okay.
kinship placement.
Kinship placement. Okay. Okay.
So
I mean, what did you think when they said we want you to move in?
I was just like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
But no fear, no worry
I was a
about
little
it?
nervous.
A little nervous. Yeah.
But I had been around them a few times, and and I knew that they had younger kids, so I hoped that it was going to be safe there.
Yeah.
I never felt unsafe with them. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you move in.
And then continue doing school, but going to school was a lot easier because she worked there, so it was easy to get
Yeah.
there, and never had to worry about if I
You
wasn't
mean
going to go to school.
physically going to school, like
Yes.
not walking or riding multiple buses or whatever, or
Right.
riding with a caseworker?
Yeah.
Because that's how you got to school every day for those 3 or 4 months.
They got a bus to come and get
Oh,
me.
okay. Okay. Got it. All right.
So
I mean, these are things that I think is important that we can overlook, because a lot of kids, I don't know about our county, but I hear many stories of kids being moved from one county to another because they don't have foster parents.
right.
So sometimes when we're in our own little brain, we can think like, is a school there, school here, this is a good, or you might say that we have a really good school in our neighborhood, right? But we're not taking into account that really good school, really bad school, that's the only safe place you had.
Right.
And to take you away from that place would have been horrible, right?
That was just I felt like that was the only thing I asked for. Just
Yeah.
to stay there. That was the only thing that I asked for. I told them, I'll do anything else that you want me to do. I'll live where you want me to have to live. I want
Please
to go to
don't
this school.
do that. You're fighting for yourself again. Good. You knew what you needed.
And so
And you knew that your future mom, somewhere inside, you knew that. Maybe.
maybe.
I kind of think that. And anyway, okay, so you're living with them.
Yes, so I'm living with them, and then I had lived with them. It felt like a while. I felt, comfortable with them. I still called them, Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can
Well,
say.
yeah, because she was on here.
Oh, okay. I called them Mr. and Mrs. Hubert, so that was still what I called them. And I called them that for a really long time.
Yeah.
But there was one day that I felt like everyone was being so nice to me, and not that everyone wasn't normally nice, but it was like a suspicious nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I just had like this way of sensing at that point when something was going to change. I don't know, but I felt uneasy about everything. But my foster dad at the time, Mr. Hubert, he was like, you want a snack? Let's get you a snack. Let's get this. Let's go to my office. We're going to just talk. We're going to have a meeting. And I'm just like, okay. So we get there, and it's like everybody. It's my caseworker and my CASA and the caseworker supervisor and my foster parents, and it just felt like everyone was there. Oh, and my attorney was there. And I was just kind of confused why everyone was there. And so they told me, I felt like everyone kind of started like tearing up and stuff before they even started telling me things. And so I'm like, oh no, what happened?
And you thought what happened?
I was like,
not
what happened?
What's gonna happen.
Yeah. So I thought something happened at that point. And so they were just like, well, I wanted to let you know that at court this morning, your mother, she relinquished her rights to you. So you, she signed the paperwork, and I didn't necessarily know what that meant, but they kind of explained it to me. But they were like, it's okay if you cry. And I was just like, I felt so numb. I didn't know what to feel about that. Yeah. So, I just kind of sat there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And, everyone gave me hugs and was like, it's going to be okay and everything. And so they were like, well, you'll be living with the Huberts for a little while longer and until we find something more, more permanent. And they reiterated to me that it wasn't my fault that she did that and everything.
Did they give you a reason?
She didn't give a reason, okay. I don't think. Later, she told me that she felt like I was going to have a better life with the Huberts, but the goal was not adoption there, so I don't know where she got that idea.
Yeah.
The goal was always for me to go back to her. Mm-hmm. So since adoption with them wasn't even in the works, it wasn't. We had never talked about it or anything. I just that kind of came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's hard to feel that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I still feel hurt about it.
Of course.
I wish I didn't. I wish I could get through that, but for some reason I do still feel hurt about it, and that's something that affects me whenever I'm working, because when I see cases that I feel like are starting to go down that route, like parents are starting to give up or something, I feel like it's my responsibility to like get them back into action. Like, no, that I know how your child would feel if you were to do that. So we're not doing that. Yeah. No, this is not an option, but it is an option for them. So, I have to, keep that in mind, that it is an option for them, but for me, it feels like it shouldn't be an option.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, everything's an option, right? We all have choice. But for you, like in my mind, I think, well, that's not the choice we would choose, but it's also not the choice where you were. Mm-hmm. It's like something, because you weren't safe. You were scared and you were not safe. So it's a horrible tension to live in, isn't it? And then you just stick it. You're still in it. You're just living in it. Okay, so did you leave the meeting just thinking, okay, here I am in the middle of I don't know what to do with these feelings. I mean, did you ever just like break down and cry about that?
No, my coping mechanism was to sleep.
Yeah.
And so I went home and I don't really remember this, but my mom said that I went home and just slept the rest of the day, and they just didn't bother me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, girl. Yeah. You're well, I have a feeling you're still in the thick of it. You're still processing, right? I'm still processing, and I'm about to turn 50. Okay, so speed us forward to where, how did Mr. and Mrs. Hubert, right? Wind up to be mom and dad? Cat's out of the bag now, right?
Yeah. Well, they, from what I remember, they offered it, that I could stay there and still be there, whether I wanted to be adopted or not, that they would take me in and I could be part of their family, and that I would be an older sister to their 3 kids.
Yeah.
And everything. So, I mean, that's where I felt the most comfortable. So I definitely.
And so they said, they were asking you, would you like to be adopted? And how did you feel at that point?
I mean, I actually didn't want to be adopted because I hadn't completely understood everything that had happened. That I could even be adopted, that someone could just sign a paper and then that just makes me eligible for someone else to be my parent.
Yeah. So hard to understand, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when I was just 15.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. What an age for this to happen to you is 15. I mean, yeah, that's crazy. So how does all of this, and we'll try to wrap this up. I've worn you out. You're going to need to go home and sleep. Talk about sleep. You're going to need to go home and take a nap after this. But you've told us, you've sprinkled it in throughout, but like now, you are a survivor. You're a survivor. And I read something. I want to try to find it real quick. I read something this morning. I hope I thought I made a screenshot of it, but we'll see. Yeah, here it is. I'm gonna have to make it really big. So, I started this whole thing with Dr. Egger's quote, and she says, and I'll say it again, but she says, the victim says, "Why me?" The survivor says, "What now?" or "What's next?" It's something like that. And you've been in survival mode for a long time. And you probably still are. You had to get food. You had to get safety. You had to stay in that school. You had to call the cops. You know what I mean? You've been, from when you were the earliest you remember, 5 years old, trying to figure this thing out, right? Mom's asleep all day. And but there's another thing that Dr. Egger says, and I saw this morning. I thought of you, and it says, when we don't allow ourselves to grieve our losses, our wounds, our disappointments, we are doomed to keep reliving them. Freedom lies in learning to embrace what happened. And I feel like you sitting here, as painful as it can be, and you doing the work that you're doing every single day, is just reminding you, like, I went through this, but you did choose to fight and to be a survivor, and resilience. I know your mom loves the word resilience. Like, that's a lot of the training and the stuff that she does. And I know that she's teaching you about resilience, or taught you, and it's probably continue, because I know my sons are almost 24 and 22, and I'm still teaching them when I can sneak it in. But there is a process of grieving our losses and our wounds and our disappointments. We have to grieve them. And I think that's, you're going to continue to do that. But no doubt you are going to live in freedom. You know, that's what I think. Anyway, I'm proud of you. And I'm thankful to have someone like you who's been through so much. You know what it's like to pick up a kid. And I think you've had to pick up a child or something from some place that you were at one point, right? You told me something about that. Like, that's tough. And so thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for choosing to fight. Thank you. I mean, there's so much more I could go. We've been going on for a long time. I don't want to keep it, but I mean, your school was important to you. Your school, you got a full ride like you got some really special scholarship. Could you just end it on that? Cause like, that's such a happy thing for you. But another piece of you saying, I'm not lying down. I'm not going to repeat this. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And, Tell us about that, and we'll close it out with that, because I think that was super impressive. Tell me what it was. Remind me about it.
Okay. Are you talking about the big scholarship that I got?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I get. There's the state provides some tuition assistance or whatever, but you earned something, a pretty big deal. Yeah. Tell us about it.
I got a lot of scholarships, but the biggest one that I got was the Horatio Alger Scholarship, which was $21,000, and then they added in a bunch of other things. You know, like when we got there, they're like, and here's another $1,500 for pizza and ice cream, and here's
wow.
they were really cool, and they got me my first laptop and everything.
Yeah. Well, tell me, what's the scholarship? And only a few people get it too, right?
Yes. A very small amount of people get it. I think there's at least one person from every state that gets it, but it's the whole United States. There's so many people that apply. It's open to everybody.
Okay.
And it's specifically for people who have been through hardships in their life and have been through something. And so I met a lot of really cool people there, but and
so
even
did you flew to tell the whole thing? I want more.
Yeah, so we flew. They paid for me to go to Washington D.C. to accept the award, and then also they set up different workshops and stuff about trauma and about college and about budgeting and about everything. And I got to meet a bunch of famous people I got to meet a Supreme Court justice, and I got to do a lot of really cool things in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
And you spent that money going to school to move into social work so that you could to give back, because obviously you felt like your caseworker cared about you and your counselor, which is also social work too, right? Maybe you'll wind up one of those one day. You never know. I had a caseworker on the show not long ago, and she said that she started her job as a caseworker, and they had told her, if you can do this job for a year, and I know you've done it well over a year right now, but you can do anything else in this field.
Yeah, I met someone the other day. She said that she was a 20-year veteran of the Navy, and she said this is the hardest she's ever worked in her life. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, I'm not lasting doing this. I'm going to be done in like 2 months.
Yeah. And you have a huge caseload and are way overworked and underpaid, I might add. Not that that's not going to do one bit of good for me to say that. But anyway, thank you for your time today, Serenity. You are a joy, and I'm so glad that I got to know you. And thank you for being willing to share. And so I hope you go home and nurture yourself today.
Thank you.
You need to. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to Serenity's story. I hope that her story reminds you of the seriousness and the hard things. And we didn't even get into some of her story. There's so much more. But she's been through a hard time, and that's where our kids come from, and they need us. And you know what? I wish somebody would have questioned a long time ago what was going on in Serenity's life. We got to pay attention. We got to know when there's people. We got to listen, and we got to be aware of what's going on. So thanks for listening. Thanks for becoming aware. Thanks for doing what you're doing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
almost whale.